Welcome back to episode 136 of Frederick Advice Givers. I've got with us today Sean Moore of Moore Wealth. He is right down here in the heart of Frederick. We're on Carroll Creek, beautiful setting here in downtown Frederick. Met Sean a few months ago. He's actually an Impact Club member.
That's right.
And actually, funny story, it's pretty unique, and we were talking on the pre-interview about how small Frederick is. You went to TJ, I went to Frederick. So I was at an event or a school function or something, and somebody that works for you came up to me and said, "Are you Eric Verdi? You're Susan Verdi's husband?" I was like, "Yeah." She said, "I'm in a book club with Susan." So I think somebody that works for you, we have mutual connections there too.
Yeah, Jennifer Cruz,
exactly.
Book club lady. She's in 3 or 4. I did not know that.
Yeah. Well, book clubs.
Exactly.
All right, Sean, for our audience that might not know you, tell us about yourself, who you are, where did you grow up, the backstory.
Absolutely. So as you said, Eric, I grew up in Frederick. I was actually born at FMH back on Christmas Day in 1987. My mom likes to say that I was the best Christmas present she ever received. We'll see how long she sticks with that story, holding her to it for now. But grew up in Frederick, went to TJ High School, like you said, went to University of Maryland thereafter, got a degree in finance, was here at Moore Wealth briefly while I was sort of figuring out my adult phase.
Okay.
And then I actually joined the Army, where I went and trained to be and then eventually became a Green Beret, which I did for about 6 years. Went some interesting places, did some interesting things. And now I'm transitioning back here to Frederick and to Moore Wealth.
All right, so tell me, that's an unusual path.
Yeah.
Okay, so you went from here to college to professional life, then to the Army?
Yeah, that's correct.
So what motivated you inside to do that?
Yeah, so I was, like I said, I did my degree in finance, and part of the motivation for that was that my mom, Shabri, is actually the founder of Moore Wealth.
Okay.
So I was like, hey, finance, she seems to enjoy this. Let me pursue that. Did that for 4 years. I loved it. Corporate finance that you learn in school is drastically different than what we do here at Moore Wealth.
Right.
Not a bad thing, just different. So I kind of got my feet wet on that, learned about it, came back here, was deciding what my next step was going to be. How am I going to go out and get that real world experience? A rule that Shabri set for myself and for my brother, all 3 of us now work together, is that if you are going to come back and work with me, you need to go out and do something different. You need to get some meaningful experience for 3 to 5 years.
Okay.
I don't know that she predicted that I would join the Army, but while I was sitting here after college figuring out what's that next step going to be, I had this moment of realization. It dawned on me that this is what I'm going to be doing for the foreseeable future. And while that's exciting and interesting and great, in a way it's comfortable. I need to get outside my comfort zone. I need to do something outside of myself. Research on research came down to sort of 2 choices, and they may seem drastically different, but I settled on either the Peace Corps or the Army. And I know that's going to sound insane to a lot of your viewers and your listeners, but the more research I did about the Special Forces, about the Green Berets, it's sort of colloquially referred to as the Peace Corps with guns. And I found that to be very accurate. One of the deployments I did was actually in Niger, and it was very focused on sort of community building and relationship building with our partner military force there. So it was a good fit for me because it got me outside of my comfort zone. It was a really intense challenge, and it gave me an opportunity to make a meaningful difference before I then came back to Moore Wealth.
Wow. Okay.
That was like the 15-second version.
And I don't know if you're allowed to talk about this. It might be confidential, but what was like one crazy experience you had in the Army?
Yeah, I mean, plenty of crazy experiences, plenty of interesting experiences. Going back to that Niger deployment, it's been in the news lately. But when I was there, what we were doing specifically was building that relationship with the Nigerian military. As some people might be familiar with, Boko Haram is an existing terror threat in that region of Africa. And so we were basically trying to help those guys deal with their security issues. The most interesting, sort of crazy, lasting thing from that, there's a camp that I built in Maradi, Niger, and you can actually see it if you look it up on Google Maps. So that was pretty cool. It was just a big patch of desert, and now it's a place that can house like almost 200 people, and it's a training facility and helicopter landing zone and everything else.
Awesome. All right, so I kind of know where this answer is going to go, but I mean, you were in the Army. You grew up in Frederick. You went all around the world. You went to Africa. What brought you back to Frederick?
Yeah, I mean, obviously family. The family business is pretty kind of a cheating answer.
Right.
And it, growing up here and knowing that ultimately what I wanted to do was come back to Frederick and work with my mom, work with my brother. that's what drew me back. And yeah, I took a diversion, and it was a really compelling diversion. I had a really good time doing it. I like to think I was really good at it, but I eventually found my way back here, and I'm excited to be back. It's only been about 6 months now.
And you've got a big event happening this summer?
Yes, I do. I'm getting married in August. Actually, Eric's getting married in June, so we have lots of weddings. Yeah, more or less back to back. Yeah.
Awesome. Where are the wives from?
So they're actually both grew up in Frederick. My fiance is originally from upstate New York. We actually went to high school together.
Okay.
We did not date in high school. She would want me to emphasize that for all the viewers and listeners. We were loosely connected, same group of friends, and then we reconnected when I was in the Army through a mutual friend. She took a chance on me and actually moved out to Colorado, despite the fact that I was spending a lot of time away from Colorado. Right. And now we're getting married. Three, almost 4 years later.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
It should be fun. Where's the wedding?
So we're actually doing a 2-part wedding, which is going to go into something that I imagine you're going to ask me about later.
Okay.
First part is going to be a small, intimate thing in Montana. We had the opportunity to visit this really beautiful ranch while we were on a road trip, and so we were like, this would be a really cool place to do a wedding with just our immediate family, closest friends,
right.
And they actually let you rent out the whole ranch for 3-4 days. So that's what we're going to do at the beginning of August, is rent it out, have our immediate friends, my groomsmen, her bridesmaids, their respective significant others, and just have a long weekend and throw a wedding in there.
Awesome. If I can give you one piece of advice from
Please.
How long have I been married? Since from 15 years, 16 years into the future. My cousin gave me this advice when I was engaged and getting ready to get married to my wife, Susan. Our stories are somewhat similar. My wife and I met in college. We have mutual friends in college, but we didn't date. Mm-hmm. And I tell everybody kind of like what you just said is if we dated in college, we probably wouldn't be married today.
Yeah.
So it worked out how it's supposed to work out. But my cousin gave me one lasting piece of advice. He said, Eric, the wedding day is for 2 people. It's for your bride and your bride's mother.
Yeah.
If you can keep those 2 happy, you'll do okay.
Yeah, I've gotten some varying versions of that same advice,
right.
So we're working on it.
Cool.
We're making sure.
All right, so let's loosen it up a little bit. This is a pretty fun loose interview already, but what's the last purchase that you splurged on?
So actually, that is what we're splurging on a little bit, is that Montana ranch wedding adventure.
Gotcha.
As you can imagine, renting out an exclusive venue is a little bit pricey. Our parents are very generously helping us out with wedding costs, as they're known to do.
Right.
But we're going to have a little bit of skin in the game, mostly because that's maybe a bit more extravagant than most people would typically do.
Gotcha. So what's a hobby ranch, Sean, that you could spend hours doing?
I love skiing. I've been skiing since I could walk.
Really?
I know growing up in Frederick, that's maybe not the most traditional hobby to take up, given the vast amount of snowy mountains that we have here.
Right.
But yeah, my parents both got into it in college, and so they were insistent that my brother and I learn from a very young age. So I've been doing it for almost as long as I've been alive, and I could do it all day, every day.
Skiing or snowboarding or both?
I tried snowboarding briefly when I was in my early teens, and when you start skiing when you're 2, and then
right.
12, 13, you start trying to snowboard. There's a 10-year skill gap. It's hard to pick up a new thing.
So you weren't a skater growing up?
No, I was not. Okay. A little bit of rollerblading, not any skateboarding.
You were probably. So when I was growing up, skating was kind of big. You're probably a little bit younger, and that was kind of probably phased out by the time you were growing up in middle school and high school.
There was still a significant crowd, but yeah, not really my bag.
Gotcha. All right, so let's get into the meat of the interview here. When you wake up in the morning, Sean, like what is that driving force to come in here and every day and do what you do and help the people and help people grow financially through wealth?
Yeah, absolutely. So the literal answer to that is my dog, Penny, who's in my office just next door. She literally helps wake me up in the morning in the classic dog fashion.
Right.
But the answer you're really looking for is just for me personally, I like getting up and just trying to be better. I'm not perfect, not by a long shot, but I just like to get up and try to learn something new, do something different, and just make a meaningful change in my own life, which translates naturally into what we at More Wealth do for our clients. People come in and they have issues, and they're real life issues. And it's not the case that we can help them solve those issues in any way. We're really just trying to make sure that they're financially prepared to handle that.
Right.
And so it's really exciting and interesting to be able to be a critical part of people's lives, and that they basically look at Shabri, they look at Eric, and they say, how am I going to make this work? And they and we are able to help develop solutions for them to be able to do that.
Gotcha. So you refer to her as Shabri?
So in the office, she's Shabri. Outside the office, she's Mom.
Yeah. Okay.
We have to professional and personal boundaries.
Yeah, I was wondering that. Hey, Mom, you're down.
Yeah.
Mom, what do you want for lunch today? We're running down to Wags. What do you want?
Exactly. Sometimes we transition back and forth depending on the context of the conversation. But yeah, generally we try to do a hard line. We walk in the door and it's shivery.
Gotcha. All right, before I go to the next question, I want to kind of divert off here a little bit. So give me the backstory of More Wealth. Your mom started it, founded it. Are you guys CFPs? Are you CPAs? Like, what is your, and I know we don't want to get any compliance issues. We're not going to ask about that. I just want the background of the history of More.
The history of More Wealth is that Shabri, mom, actually started the firm back in 2003.
Okay.
Prior to that, her background is actually in molecular biology. She has a master's degree in molecular biology.
Okay.
That's what led us into being in Frederick in the first place. She and my dad actually both worked at NCI. Mm-hmm. That's where they met. They did that for a number of years. She spun out into the private sector, was working in the biotech industry. As some viewers are probably familiar with, lots of ups and downs in that industry, and she basically got tired of it. She was like, look, I have two relatively young kids. We like this area. It's going to be challenging to maintain a reasonable home life and stay in this area, riding these ups and downs. Mm-hmm. So her and my dad came to an agreement. They were like, look, let's have me take a summer off, mm-hmm. basically take a summer break as an adult, which is a cool opportunity to take. And I'm just going to meet and talk with friends and neighbors and people that we know and figure out, what is it that you do and what is it that makes you love your job? And we had a friend and neighbor who happened to be, he was basically an insurance salesman, but he leaned towards financial advisory services. He seemed to love what he did. So she worked with him for a handful of years, got herself started, figured out, hey, this is an industry I'm interested in. And then they parted ways in 2003 when she said, I want to go in more of a planning direction.
Right.
She's been a CFP for a number of years. Mm-hmm. And Eric is actually working on getting a CFP right now. I, being new to the industry, am working on getting my licensure, which is super exciting, as anyone in any licensing industry can tell you. And then starting in the fall or beginning of next year, I'll start working on my CFP as well.
I have no doubt you'll get there quickly with your background. You're a driven dude, so I have no doubt you'll get there quickly.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right, so what's a piece of advice you would give somebody, and you're kind of, your mom started the business, but you're kind of in this mode right now. What's one piece of advice you give somebody just starting out in the entrepreneurial world, in business in general?
Yeah, for sure.
Maybe a shortcut that your mom gave you that said, hey, look, it took me 4 years to do this. Right. If you do this, and this, it'll take 6 months.
Right. Yeah, so I know the cliche answer is to say there are no shortcuts in business, but the real answer is something that I learned in the Army when I was on a Special Forces team. You think, this is this elite fighting force. These guys have got to be A+ all the time, 100%. No, we were consistently getting 85% solutions. Mm-hmm. And so we love to use the phrase, the 85% solution. And the reason for that is that in the real world, perfection is rare. It's a very rare thing. And so I think that starting in business, starting in anything, people that are driven tend to drive themselves to obsession over this notion of getting to perfect. And I think that ends up holding them back. If you get to an 85% solution, a solid B+ solution, that can at least get the ball rolling. And then once you've got the ball rolling, you can work towards 100%. You can work towards an A+. But if you try to start from that, you're never going to get moving. You're never going to get anywhere. I mean, me in here every day, mm-hmm. I am far from perfect. If I can get to 85%, that's a great day because I'm new. I'm learning. I don't have the experience to come in and sit down in a meeting with you, Eric, and coach you and advise you on what you should do financially. Aside from the fact that I don't have the licensure to do that, I don't have the experience.
Right.
So over time, building that experience and working with these guys, I can get to that point where I can say, hey, this is a solid start, and then consult with my team members, get you to that 100%. But if I strove for 100% right off the bat, I'd never start my day.
You will be stuck. And that was a conversation Rock and I behind the video and audio here just had the other week is, it doesn't have to be perfect the first time out. You're, the 12th episode that we've done video format here. This is going to show much better than the first one we did. But we had to get that first one done. And yeah, it was probably 85%. You'll be 95%. We're not 100% yet. But if you don't get to that 85, you're not going to get to the 100. Right.
You gotta run it, otherwise you're never gonna know.
Exactly. All right. So on the flip side, what's a bad piece of advice? And this could be life, this could be business. What's a bad piece of advice that somebody gave you that has not worked out like you or they thought it was going to?
Yeah. I know, so our industry is oft maligned. You have things like Wolf of Wall Street and similar films that tend to make financial advisors and financial advisory services in general look bad. And I think a big piece of that is something that some people might be familiar with from Glenn Ross, this notion of the ABCs always be closing. And that's a common stereotype in this industry, and I think a lot of people in this industry cater to that, and that it's, well, if I'm just selling, closing, you know, I'm going to do great and everything's going to be fine. And I personally, and we as a firm, that's not the right way to approach things. You know, we should always be listening, we should always be caring, we should always be responding to the needs of our clients, because at the end of the day, it's not about the money. I mean, if you have $100 million, good on you, I'm really happy for you. But if that doesn't adequately meet your financial needs, which may sound absurd, but if that doesn't do what you need it to do, then we haven't really done our job. And if you come into more wealth, it's not about always be closing. We're not trying to sell you on anything. We're selling you on your own future, your family's future, your success. Right. And how can we help service that? I don't need to give you a thing. I need to help you achieve what you're looking to do.
And you and I are both in a sales business, you know, and what I do on a day-to-day basis, besides Impact Club and Advice Givers, is real estate. You know, that's how I make my living. You know, in our pre-interview, you know, you had talked about, you know, you were just starting to look for a house. And you're like, but I'm not looking for an agent. I'm not. But that, you know, that's not my. I'm like, you know, Sean, that's, you know, cool. That's not my style. You know, just because somebody's looking for a house, whatever. You know, I'm not pushy. It doesn't seem like you're the pushy type of guy. The ABC that I talk about is always be creating. So always be creating content. Always be creating your message. Always be creating your narrative. Once you get those pieces out there, then the business kind of comes to you. Always be closings for those typical salespeople that are always chasing the leads. Right. And it's not my business model. It doesn't sound like that's your business model either. All right, Sean, so in the last 3 years, what's one choice that's led you to where we're sitting today?
Yeah, so as I said, I spent the past 6 years, up until about 6 months ago, as a Green Beret. I was in the Army. So about halfway through that, that was when Lucy and I got together, my fiance and I got together. We started getting very serious. She moved out to Colorado. So it was back in the fall of 2016, I would say, was that decision point that you're asking about. I was actually in Afghanistan. I was deployed over there for almost 6 months. And during that period, that was when I really said, okay, I'm committing. I'd known I wanted to ask her to marry me for a long time. Right. But that was when it was like, okay, it's serious. I definitely want to do this. And I couldn't tell you what day of the week it was, or even specifically when it was while I was over there. We had a really spotty satellite internet connection. But I called her parents because that was something we could manage to do periodically. Right. And call me old fashioned, but I had this long chatty conversation building up to the point of, you know, can I have your permission to ask Lucy to marry me? And it's a little bit of a regret of mine that I didn't get to see their faces. I didn't get to be there to ask them that for obvious reasons. But it just, you know, at the time there was a lot going on. It felt very important to do that right then and there. So that decision is ultimately what sort of, you know, created the fork and made me take a turn. Like I said before, I really enjoyed my job. I loved being a Green Beret, aside from the cool guy factor. It was a great job, and it was very fulfilling. And I like to believe that I was good at it. I like to believe I was really good at it. But at the end of the day, I got back from Afghanistan towards the end of that year. Lucy and I did the math. I had only been home maybe 45 days in 2016, and It wasn't all at the same time. Right. And ultimately, that was going to be something I was going to do moving forward in perpetuity. I still have friends that do that. I love them to death, and they're amazing human beings. But I could not see myself both being a good partner to her and being a good Green Beret for the foreseeable future. And so knowing that I was intending to come back to More Wealth at some point anyway, knowing that we were planning on coming back to Frederick at some point anyway, that just created the impetus to say, okay, it's time to make that move. Let's not put it off any further. Let's sort of start on that next phase of our lives right now.
And what's Lucy do?
She's a social worker by training. So she actually went to University of Maryland School of Social Work for her master's. She's currently out in Washington County working for Turning Point, and she's spearheading their effort to create a mobile crisis team for Washington County. So currently, if you deal with mobile crisis in Washington County and you speak with Lucy, she is Washington County, Maryland Mobile Crisis.
Awesome. So Sean, you're episode 136. I've got to sit behind the mic and ask questions for 135 episodes. I gain so much talking to each individual that I interview, each entrepreneur, each business owner, that I take snippets and mold them into my business or my life. I want to flip the script here and give a moment for you to ask me a question.
Perfect. So I prepared some remarks for this because I wanted to have a good question for Eric, so bear with me while I thumb through my notes here. All right. So, Mr. Eric. So first and foremost, at a typical More Wealth initial consultation, I would be remiss if I didn't bring up something that we do in our business. Sure. We ask potential clients, what are 3 financial issues that keep you up at night?
That's a good question. So coming from a finance background, okay, so I went to college at Salisbury with a degree in finance, went to get my MBA in finance. Growing up, where I grew up with my parents, my dad owned a business. My mom worked at a local doctor's office and at the hospital here. I was always taught to save. Okay, so you put together a certain aspect to save for the long-term growth, and I was also taught to not spend beyond your means. So, one thing I was very fortunate of, except for one time right around the end of college, I never had debt. I never had credit card debt. So immediate financial doesn't keep me up at night. What does keep me not up at night, I'm not up at night because I am a planner, is the long-term growth and sustainability of what we're growing business-wise here, growing multiple businesses, but 2, what I'll have in place for my kids for the future. I would say what keeps me up at night now is the growth of my business, and how we're going to sustain revenue to keep what we're growing.
Got it.
Good question.
I do what I can. So that was the More Wealth business question. I actually have another one, which is a favorite interview question that I have been asked. Just job interview,
right?
Professional interview type thing. So, and it's also pertinent to our business. Right. So we finish this interview. You walk out the door. You pick up a lottery ticket, and it turns out that lottery ticket just won you $10 million. What is the next thing you do?
Well, first I had to call my wife and let her know. And it's funny, like, I love what I do. I would probably sleep a little bit more, probably wouldn't be up at 4 o'clock working every day. I might wait till 6 to start working. Yeah. But I honestly, man, I love what I do. I would maybe do my wife and I, we love to travel. So I would schedule 4 or 5 2-week vacations a year.
Okay.
But and I think my wife would answer the exact same question. My wife loves what she does too, professionally.
Got it.
So I think we would just travel more, but keep our day-to-day activity, because you got to do something to stay sane, right?
Right. That's awesome though that you guys feel professionally fulfilled enough that you would keep doing it without the money. I think that's a rare thing.
I would. I mean, this I love. I love getting to meet people like you. I truly love getting to meet other business owners and entrepreneurs. And I want to make a lasting impact in Frederick. Yeah, I mean, that would you say $10 or $100 million, whatever you said, would go a long way towards giving back to the community. Like you're an Impact Club member.
Yeah.
We gave away, we donated $113,600 in the last year to 5 local charities through crowdsourcing at $100 per member per quarter. We would amplify those efforts.
For sure.
So cool.
Awesome.
Good questions.
I do what I can. You gave me some good ones. I had to have something worthwhile.
That was good. All right, Sean, let's finish up with these final 2 questions. What failure or loss has helped mold you and set you up for success?
Yeah. So back in 2006, right after I graduated from high school, had my summer, did my thing, getting ready to go to school. And then 2 weeks before I started up at University of Maryland, my dad actually passed away. Heart attack. Yeah, exactly. Not something expected, just kind of out of the blue. So that's the most sort of literal loss. And that definitely has shaped the direction that my life has taken. I mean, I had some struggles in college just because obviously I had personal stuff going on. Right. And then beyond that, I think it transformed from struggles into what can I do to make the most of my time, and what can I do to sort of make me and people around me feel good about what I'm doing with myself. And I think I'd be lying if there wasn't some portion of that drove me to do the Army, to do the Green Beret thing, in part because it was just, it was a challenge, and it felt like I was sort of pushing myself out there to the limit. And, as cheesy as it might sound, as cliche as it might sound, there's a part of me that's always like, I feel weird saying it, would Dad be proud of me today?
Right.
And, it's, there's some of that's always there, and some of it's just kind of in the background, and it's not a literal thing that's said. But it
is.
drives
It's
me.
always there.
Yeah.
Trust me, it's always there.
Yeah.
I hear you. I hear you. So yeah, I mean, your mom's got to be over the moon excited to have. Are you? It's just you and your brother?
Yeah.
You have other
just
siblings?
the two of us. Yeah.
So your mom's got to be over the moon excited to have you two here.
Definitely.
She's still local, obviously. Your mom lives in Frederick?
Yeah. She actually lives downtown on 5th Street.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. And where's your brother live?
He just moved to Baltimore. So he had been living in Pittsburgh. He's a University of Pittsburgh grad. Spent a few years there. And he was living in Frederick for almost a year after getting back into town. Him and his fiance really like the city life. And they just said, you know what, Frederick's great. We love it, but not right now. We're going to go hang out in Baltimore for a few years, and then we'll circle back around.
Gotcha. All right, Sean. So where do you see yourself in 3 years and 10 years?
Yeah. So it's crazy to even think about looking out at all, because I'm in the midst of doing all these licensing exams, getting rolling on the CFP, getting married, maybe buying a house. So even looking out 6 months or a year is like, wow, that seems like forever. But 3 years out, I can see myself having all these licenses taken care of professionally, CFP in my pocket, personally, happily married, getting things rolling on that. Hopefully we'll be living in a house, the two of us and our cute little dog Penny. And just really kind of professionally hitting my stride and kind of getting back into the Frederick Community Impact Club, among other things being a big part of that. Just saying, hey, not only am I here, but I'm really here. I'm involved in being here. Right. And then 10 years, sort of the same thing. Really building that relationship, being continually happily married. I am a fan of children. I would like to think
that was my next question. I don't want to get too personal. Are you guys playing on kids at some point in the future?
I mean, we're in no rush. But yeah, 10 years out, I would like to think that we've probably done that, at least to some extent. And we'll see where things take us. 10 years really deepening that connection with the community. I know that it's a big deal for my mom, for Shabri, to be involved in all things Frederick, and that's a big part of who I am, is just knowing that she's out there doing all these things. And that's something that I want to continue, and that Eric wants to continue as well, is just to say, hey, what can we give back to this place that's given so much to us?
Yeah, I mean, that's basically why I started the Impact Club. I've been here 42 years, and Frederick, you're here, your mom's here, your brother works here. Frederick is an amazing, amazing community, and everybody kind of pulls together. There's other, I'm in a building here and on 50 Carroll Creek Way, and there's probably 4 or 5 different financial advisors that are in this building. There's probably 30 that are within a 2-block radius. And although, I can imagine being in the field that I am, I'm able to bounce ideas off of people from other companies, other businesses. We all share ideas. I imagine it's kind of the same thing in your world, where yes, you might be competing, but you guys all raise each other up. And we're in downtown Frederick, I'll go and meet at one of the small retail shops, and they're all helping each other out. Right. Frederick is pretty cool in that aspect. Frederick's a tight-knit community. Do you see that too?
100%. And I think it's that notion of everybody coming together and boosting each other up is really important. It's a big draw of Frederick. I mean, yeah, it's an inherently competitive environment within the same industry, real estate, financial services. But you're absolutely right. The community in Frederick is very much about banding together and making sure that everyone's doing better. And then within that, yeah, we're going to pick, who's going to be number 1, 2, 3, whatever. But as a whole, we want Frederick to be, the number 1, and then everybody else can kind of figure themselves out.
Exactly. All right, Sean, great interview. I appreciate you did awesome. I enjoyed it, man. You did good.
Thank you very much.
So how do our listeners get a hold of you? Where are you located? Facebook page, websites, all that kind of fun stuff?
We've got it all. So credit to Jennifer Cruz, who was a friend of your wife's in the book club there. She's our marketing director. So yeah, we're physically located at 50 Carroll Creek Way, Suite 335. You'll find us on the top floor of the same building as the Wine Kitchen and Donor Bistro. Online, www.moorewealthinc, that's MOOREWEALTHINC.com. We're also on Facebook and Twitter. You'll see our posts periodically. If you'd like to email me personally, it's just Sean, SEAN, @moorewealthinc.com. Yeah, any number of ways to get in touch with us. Please stop by. We'd love to have you.
Sean, I appreciate you joining us today. Listeners, I hope you enjoyed Sean's interview as much as I did. Great guy. Check him out. They're right downtown. You'll get to come here. He'll ask some questions like he did me. So you're already prepared. He gave you like a little insight of the questions that you might be asked.
Little taste,
right?
Little taste, yeah.
All right, that's Sean Moore, episode 136 of Frederick Advice Givers, and we are out.